memorizing or remembering everything is not easy. Okay, so here it is. So what I'm trying to do today is I will introduce you to classes, which of course you've seen with Rich too. And again, whatever extra I can tell, I will, and then extra stuff on classes I'll try to do next week. So here is a form in which that allows you to add a new product or delete a product from an inventory. So there is an inventory of products where each product has a code, a description, and a price. So as soon as you start talking, oh, I need an object. So product is an object. So we'll define a class that will define the instance variables in the class and the methods that are available. And then the aim is to maintain, as the name suggests, product maintenance in an inventory. So I've created two forms. You could have added another button modify, maybe hint, maybe in the exam you will be asked to, just so that you know. So the add product allows you to add a new product to the inventory, and the delete product deletes a product from the inventory. The inventory is being maintained in a file. So you have, again, you have all that inventory to begin with. I mean, I didn't put anything in it. I'll show you how you can create an empty file. So you can add products, and when you add a product, it goes into a list. Temporarily it goes into a list, but then the list is saved in a file. Right? So what you learned in file last week, I'll reiterate it again. We'll just use a different mode this time. And instead of showing you all possible, I'll just use one, because now you know that you can create file streams. You can also use string names and so on. So I'll just use one way of doing it. But I will also show you how to work with binary files. And as you're aware, text files that we worked with last week assumes everything is text. And therefore, we don't have to worry about it. Everything goes as text. Everything comes as text. But if you have something that's a number, then you'll have to parse it. As I said last week, you'll have to parse it before you use it. On the other hand, binary files cannot be created by humans because they are not human readable and we can't create them. But we can write a program to create a binary file, and the advantage of binary file is that it can deal with all kind of data, which is non-numeric and numeric data. So you save it, so there are special methods, and you read them, read decimal, read integer, and so on. All those methods were mentioned. So if you know what kind of data I want to read, all you simply do is when you save it, you do a write. There is nothing in the write. When you read it, you say, I want to read it as a decimal. Of course, there are a lot of exception classes, IOException being the parent of all exception classes in the files at least, not overall in all the classes. And there are simple exception classes, which necessarily I won't be using, but file not found, directory not found, or so on are also available. So the aim today is, I've already created two interfaces for you. So this will show up here right now because I've given it a name. When the program runs, the list products will not show up. So it is an empty list, but when the program loads, it will take all the products that are in the inventory from a file, and it will populate this list. Okay. There is an option of putting it sorted if you like, which is what we like because we are human beings. We like things to be sorted. So if you give it a property of sorted, then by default, irrespective of how you add or whatever is in its items collection, when it appears on the screen, it will always be sorted. Okay, so that's the sorted option. I've also created another form. So that's the form made. I've also created another form that allows you to add a product to the inventory. So in delete, there is nothing much to do. You don't have to give any input. You know what I mean? Delete means just delete a product. So all you have to do is just confirm from the user, yes, need to delete. In an add, definitely, when you add a product, you have to give the code of the product, you have to give the description, and you have to give the price. So again, the same thing, the code and description are text, but you could always validate it. I'll show you a small validation today with code. We'll say that the code has to be 4 characters long, for example. But with price, you have to do again the same thing, try parse it or try parse it. Today I'll go with try parse. I've done parse many times with you, so today I'll do try parse just so that you get an idea. Many of you use it. Many students in the class do use try parse. It's up to you. And then, as you see, as soon as the user puts in the product and it hits save, if all the data is valid, it will be saved in the file. So it will be saved in the file. And if you say cancel, of course, it's not saved. Okay. So now, since we are going to deal with products today, the first thing that we have to kind of do is create a product class. So to create a class of product, in which, as you can see, there are 3 instance variables for sure, and then it will have methods, of course. Right? You will have the getters and the setters, which are called properties in C#. You must be aware by now, as you're doing classes with Rich too, right? So these are called fields. Instance variables is another name which is more common in Java than in C#. But you have fields and then you have properties. The getters or setters are called properties, and of course then you have methods. So whatever I can do today, keeping in mind that I have to finish it in this time, and then anything extra or anything new I'll do next week. Okay, so your first job is to create a new class, product.cs. So you can either go from here or you can go from here and say add a new, you can say add class if you like straight here. You can always say add new item and choose the class there, whatever works for you. Right? So the class just gets chosen. So now again, keeping in mind the naming conventions, like in Java, names of classes must be meaningful, 1, and 2, start with a capital letter. So it follows the Pascal naming convention. And a good name for a product class would be product. It does create a template for you, and I would like to point out something in the template, because as I was testing it yesterday, I had something and it didn't make a lot of sense till I found out what the problem is. So I'm going to create a class here. It's just a C# file with extension.cs, and this is the first time I think you're doing a class in its own right? Till now, we've always been creating event handlers in forms. We did have class, it had the extension.cs, but that class was more of working with forms rather than an independent class. No, project new item. So go under project and say add a new item. You can go new item, you can go new class. You can always go here and right click also on your project right here. You can always do right click and say add from here also. New item will show you everything. Class also did the same thing, except it was just there. So here, so that's the basic stub for a class. As you notice, there are using statements, the namespace, and then the class. Now, by default, it doesn't put anything here. Like, it doesn't. Now, classes, if you need to use them across the project, right, they should be public. So this was missing, and I didn't pay attention to it yesterday, and I had weird kind of error that I had to look up. But anyway, now that you know, please see that classes are public. If you don't do it, it talks about some scope. It will. And it says it's not available. Then you'll have to import it, use it, right? So this is just, if you make it public, then it can be used throughout the project. Now we haven't done inheritance, but then there is always the concept of saying the classes can only be used in the project, but we haven't gone there at all. So we'll just write a normal class, right? So make that, so the stuff that it creates, it doesn't put any scope identifier with it, and that's kind of creates a little bit of problem. So we'll start with the product class, and then I'll show you another class today with the validator. Okay, as in Java or in any object-oriented programming language, a class has instance variables. They're called fields, and what it means is every object that is instantiated from this class has these instance variables. And again, it is important that you understand what should be the instance variables and what are local variables. So if you're using a for loop and you're using an index variable I, please don't declare it at the class level. It doesn't make sense. On the class level, you only keep those fields which make sense to go with the object. So if I was talking about student, I would say student name, student ID, maybe semester number, and so on. But if I need some local variables for some calculating average marks of a student or something, or using for an index I variable, I don't want to declare it at my class level. And that stands for all object-oriented programming languages. So by this time, hopefully, you know, because you're doing Java, you know that what should be declared at the class level. With modules and locals, I was not so very particular because those were a different kind of animal, but here you have to be very careful. So here is a product class, and as I showed you the form, every product has a code, a description, and a price, right? Keeping in design with object-oriented languages where data must be hidden will make these instance variables as private. So don't be lazy and make them public and then you don't write getters and setters. But again, it's not a rule. It's more of a convention, and there are parties on both sides saying, oh, public is better, then we don't have to bother about getters and setters. I'll stick to what I think I like. When you write your own applications and you become programmers, do whatever you like. But data hidden is a design principle for object-oriented languages. So we'll start with, so they're just called fields. I mean, there's nothing wrong in calling them instance variables, but I'll just use terms that we use here. So I'll keep them private, right? The types we already know in C#, so I won't repeat them. There is nothing new in them. And I'll go with code. So that's my first. Now in Java, we usually put them on different lines. It's again a convention. In C and C Sharp, if you have more than one strings, you can do it. It's just a convention, nothing else. I'm just in the habit of writing them in different lines. My second one is a string again, which was the description. And my third one is a price, which is a decimal. Right? So as in all programming languages, you declare your instance variables at the class level. It's called the class level. It doesn't matter that they have to be right in the beginning. It's no sequencing here. A class is nothing but encapsulation of data and method. So it doesn't matter if you shake it, it's still inside it. So it doesn't matter where you place them. Okay. Now, I will tell you a few things and I'll put my comments, and as I do them, I'll let you know what it is. Constructors are available. Definitely, if you don't have a constructor, you can create an object of a class. So you can write constructors. However, you can overload them as in any object-oriented language. The name of a constructor is the same as the name of the class and does not have a return type. Definitely, they must be public, cannot be private. They must be public, and you have the option of creating the default one that takes no parameters and does nothing and sets your instance variables to default values. So the default values for code, description, and price are null, null, and 0. That's the default values of your instance variables. So not very different from Java, say, right? So to write a constructor, all you do is you go public, you give the same name as the name of the class. It may have no parameters at all, and it may not be doing anything at all. So that's your default one. I mean, it's just there if you need it, if you need to use it. The more important one for me, and again, now here we'll start writing here the comments are really important in the sense, that's strange, it didn't give me my help, right? What should be on to? Do you think the XML should be on? I don't want to keep it. Sorry? No, I was just going to write my documentation, but remember when we do this, it comes up with summary and sender and so on. But that's only when you have method or something below it. But if I need to start, I should be able to. You mean I should first write it and then it will allow me? Yeah. That's kind of odd. Yeah. Okay. Okay. You have to have something before. Okay. That's how the IDE does it. Okay. So here now, usually, I mean, not necessarily, but usually you will have a constructor that will initialize the code, the description, and the price. All instance variables, if you need to initialize them, you will always almost have a constructor that does it. So definitely you have this. We'll take a description. The sequence doesn't matter in the sense how you want to put it, but of course how you call it does matter. And then we have a decimal value. Okay, right. So now that we are writing classes, like real classes, and we have methods and constructors and so on, please see that you are writing all these comments as you would do in Java docs, right? So these are your Java docs. We'll set up the XML file under project. If you remember, we have to go project, properties, and in where was it, debug, I think. Use where was it, where you said I wanted settings could be, no, it's not settings. Resources, no, can't be resources, has to, build events, no, it has to be debug. I think it was in, no, so there it is, it's in build. So please see that you click your XML documentation file so that the documentation file is created for you. So here is an example where XML is used right in the IDE itself, right? Okay, so you can close that if you want. Okay, so let's come back here. So what does this constructor do? The constructor, so I'll kind of just give one and then I'll try to save myself time. By this point of time, hopefully you know how to write your comments. So the constructor initializes or sets the values of the fields. You shouldn't be kind of, it should be really right? So and it's written the 3 params for you. All you have to do is the code of the product, and we'll put some restrictions on it, and then I'll add it. Restrictions means maybe the size or something to show you. And since it doesn't return anything, you don't have your return here at all. It's the same thing like you do with any other programming language. You already know, but now they'll become more useful, right? Okay, now before I do this, I would like to write the getters and setters. So these getters and setters in C# are called properties, right? And the properties, the convention is that the name of a property, so for code with a small c, the property will be called code with a capital C. So how do you do it in C#? And there are a few options. So let me write them and then I'll show you how to use them. They're called properties, okay? So I'll just kind of give my, as I said, the time is kind of restricted, so I won't go into all that commenting. So what you do is you create properties. They're just called properties. And if you want to put it for yourself, I'm sure you know it by now if you're... Now, properties can be read only, properties can be write only, and properties can be both read and write. What it means is if you only have a get, you're reading only. You can't change anything. If you have a get and set, it's both are allowed. If you only have, so there is a read only, write only. So write only means only set is available and get is not available. So you have the option of, as in Java, you have the option of writing getters and setters, not write both of them or whatever you like, right? So the same options stay, but they're just written in a different way in here. Like it's just a more of a practice, I would say. So I'm going to write public because properties should be public, right? You're going to get and set. If you don't want to, there are ways to make it private. And then write the name of your instance variable with a capital letter and that relates to it. Okay, so that's how it is done. Now, as I said, you could have getters or setters. So it's kind of written like this. By default, you need a get and you need a set. So you go get, and I'll show you an easy way of writing it when there is nothing much to do. I'll show you an easy way of writing it. Right, so that's how you write a property for a instance variable. So just the same name with a capital C, then you have the get and then you have the set. Now, since set usually, that's what set does, initializes a value to the instance variable. But here notice we don't pass any parameters like we do in Java. By default, you use value, right? So what it is saying is, and I'll show you how to use them. Okay, how to use a getter and a setter. I'll show you how to use them. If you're not passing any parameter, what is that value? By default, when you use the setter, there is where you give it a value, and I'll show you how to use them. Okay, and the get will usually return, if you're not doing anything else, will return the value of the variable. So that's the getter and the setter for code. Okay, missing XML comment. Okay, right. So that's your getter and setter. Now, if you notice, there is not much I've written in it at all. Like all I've done is return and I've set a value. So if your getters and setters are kind of default nature, like this, all they do is return and set something, then there is a shorter form of writing it, and I'll write it for you. But just so that, just for the practice of it, nothing else, I can do something like this. I mean, you can validate your data right here. Right, so you're saying if the value of the length is not equal to 4, then you can throw an exception if you like. There is something called argument null exception. It's not more of an argument, it's an argument exception. The null is more for a word of that it doesn't have anything. And you can say the code must be, just to give you an example. So if you needed to do more, then you would have to write your method. But if you don't have to do anything, all it is doing and getting and setting, then there is not much to do. The validation that code must be provided, description must be provided, and so on, and the price must be decimal, we'll do it in that form, right, where we take the values. This is just a class. All it is doing is creating an object. So when values come to it, they've already been validated. So you could put this validation in your form if you like. I'm just showing you an example that validation can be done in classes. So make a class, as in any other object-oriented language, make a class independent and self, complete. So that's what you need to do, as in all programming languages. So we'll say, and you can say code must be of length 4. Right, so just giving you an example. So you could do any kind of validation. All you have to do is then you have to just normally, right, it's just a setter. So you're saying if the length is not 4 of the value, and you have to use a reserved word value, by default, it means whatever is being set. Okay, so if it is not equal to 4, it will throw a new argument exception. And remember, I don't have to put an else because throw means it will terminate right there. So you don't need an else here. Otherwise, definitely, if nothing is thrown, it will come to the next line and it will say code is equal to value. You don't even need the brackets. There's only a single statement. It's just a habit, nothing else. Okay, so I've just given an example where you have more to do in your getters and setters. Let's write something where all you have to do is return something and set something. You're not doing any validation at all. In the sense, you're not checking for anything. So description is something where you cannot validate a lot. Though you could say it has to be a valid description or something. I mean, it has to be proper or something, but right now I'm just taking it to be text. This was not bad. With code, you usually can put some kind of restriction. For example, all our subjects are comp, and then, so if I was putting something into the college system, all computer courses must start with four-lettered code, right? So you could do here, but in the description, usually there won't be any. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an example, and this is called a self-bodied, just so that you know the terms, which I can't remember by heart myself, to be very truthful, right? But it makes sense. Self-bodied property says that you can write it in another way, and this is how you can write it. So it's public, of course, and then the name of the, then the type for the getter, okay? Then the name of the property, and if you like, you can do it right here. You can say get and set. So if there is nothing else to do, but just get a value and set a value with no validation, you can write a self-bodied. And the advantage of this self-bodied property is, one, of course, it is neat and clean and short, and two, you needn't declare that variable at all. By default, a private variable description is created for you, right? So by default, for your information, by default, a private instance variable is created by the same name, by name of description. But the restriction is then whatever you have to do with description, like you have to use the getter and setter, nothing else. You have to just use it inside your code once. But then you don't have to declare it. You could, but you don't have to declare it. So you could only be writing properties, and the variable, the instance variable or the field is automatically declared. The only restriction, of course, is because there is no name, then everything that you have to do with that property, with that field, has to be through getters and setters. So this is called a self-bodied property, right? Self-bodied, the body is kind. And there are a few options here, which I can do all of them. You can make your set private if you like. You can give it an initial value by using the equal sign and so on. So as I said, I'll do the minimum in the sense what I need to do, and I know I can do with the other section. Anything extra or different, I'll do it next week if I get the chance. Okay. Okay. So that's an example of a self-bodied property, very common in C# if there is nothing else to do. And of course, you could write the same thing in your third one, which is a decimal. So you could have, there was no big deal at all. You don't need to. You could have just said the same get and set. I'll just stick. So I'll write all three kinds. Since I've written all three, I'll just say get here without validation, and the set without validation. And you always use value, the reserved word or the reserved constant, whatever you would like. It's not a constant, the reserved input parameter value to assign a value to the price. Right? So I've given you all three forms. One was doing some validation, one was a self-bodied property, and the third one is not doing any validation, but you can write it completely like the whole get and set. But this has a few options for sure. You can make the set private. You can initialize a value. Just give it when. So as I said, everything has to be now done through the property. You can't use the variable private description at all in your code. Not even in your code. Everything has to be done through this. Okay. But the advantage is now you don't have to declare it here. So it's up to you. Like in the sense, programmers have different ways of doing things. Okay. Okay, so these are the getters and the setters in C#, right? And they're called properties. They could be only read only, so that means only getting values. They could be only write only, so only set, there is no get. or they could be both read and write, which it has a get and a set. So nothing says that they should have a get or a set. Read only, write only, read only properties. All three are possible. Okay, with some syntax restrictions on this one, but otherwise it's all possible. Okay, now let's go back to the constructor I was writing. I stopped here because I wanted to just show you how to use those getters and setters. So now you want to use the set method of your code, you want to use the set method of your description, and you want to use the set method of your price. Because remember, we don't want to repeat code. What's the sense of set methods if you don't use them? So it's not only to be used from outside the class, it has to be used in the constructors also. So I don't want you to repeat code or copy or paste. You call the set methods. You always call the set methods in the constructor. And to call the set methods in the constructor, all you have to do is, this is how you do it. You write the name of the property on the left-hand side, and you write the name or the value that you want to assign on the right-hand side. That's how they are set. That's how a setter is. This is calling a setter, right? So you're taking the input parameter code and you're assigning it to the property. So therefore, we don't need to pass it a parameter. Therefore, it didn't have a parameter. It was a method. The set method didn't have a parameter. You can, of course, say this if you like, but it's not necessary. This is just your normal reserved word for the current object. So the same thing with description. So notice how the name on the right-hand side is not of and I'll show you this so that you know. I mean, there's nothing wrong in doing it. You could have done it like this if you like. Let me see if it comes up with the syntax error. Oh, I'll have to say this does description. And we'll know if that rule that you can't use it without. Okay, notice what it says. It says product does not contain a definition or description. So I can't use the instance variable as per se, but I can use the property to set it away. So when you are creating self-bodied properties, the instance variable gets created by default, but you can't access it even in the code, just because everything has to be done through the properties. Okay, so that is what I was trying to tell you. But of course, this will work. This will work. All I'm doing is calling the set method of the description. So when you write the name of a property on the left-hand side, you're calling the set method. When you write it on the right-hand side, you're calling the get method, right? And your third one was price. So you don't have to say this. So I'll kind of mix and match. So my code is not necessarily always neat and tidy because I'm trying to show you stuff. But that doesn't mean that when you do an exam or do an assignment, you just copy everything of my code. Sometimes I see two. I see a parse and I see a convert. Like, you don't need to do those things twice. I was showing you that you can use the parse method to convert a string into a number. And I said convert is also available and you can convert. But in your, I see a couple of assignments, both statements doing it. Like they're useless. They're not wrong, but they're useless. You're doing the same job twice. Okay, so that's your constructor, right? So that's how you call the set method of a field. So you don't have you don't call it like you do it in Java. You don't say set whatever and pass it a parameter. This is how you do it. You write it on the left-hand side of an assignment. Now, I won't do a lot in this class, but this is what I wanted to bring out. But I'll add a method because I need it. So normal general methods can be added. So you can. I'll just kind of, as I said, I'm just giving them names so that I can show you something. Again, as in all programming languages, methods usually will be public. Otherwise, they're like, what's the sense of writing methods? Unless you're writing a helper method only for a class that has to be used inside. And I'm going to write, just because I want to display it on my list in my form. If you remember, I said all the products will come here. So I'm going to use a get display, uses Pascal naming convention. You can always say how I want to put my data. So I'm going to call it separator. Right, so I'm going to write a method called get display, and this method will be used to display a product in that list box that I was showing you on the form. Okay, and you could use whatever you like. So now I'm going to show you how to use the getters. Right, you could use the variables as per se, but just to show you. So I'm going to take, so when you use the name of a property just like that, you're actually calling the get method. So whenever it comes on the right-hand side of an assignment, you're getting it and assigning it to something. So this is just using the get method. That's what it is doing. So code with a capital C means you're getting the using the get method of the property. You could have used a small c. You can always use private variables, but it's always a good practice to stick with gets and sets. It is an overkill sometimes, but it's just a practice that says always use the gets and the whatever. So I'm just going to put the separator in between. So if you want to separate them by comma or by pipeline or whatever, you just have to use it. And again, if it was a comma, then I would put it. And the second was called description. I cannot use description with a small d anyway. So the separator says, however, whatever you give me, if you give me a comma, a pipeline or whatever, I'll put it. And then the price. Now you could use price with a small p, and it is okay. There's nothing wrong in it. But I'll stick to my getters. And I want to convert the price to a string and show it with a. So this is just for display as the method, why is it saying, what isn't it like? Oh, missing XML. Okay. I think I can ignore the green ones, but anyway. So all I'm doing is this return will give me the code, whatever you give as the separator, the description, separator, and to list it on that list. That's what it uses, as the name suggests, get display. Okay. And the separator, the SCP is just the separator. So if you pass whatever you need to pass, it will separate it by those letters, by those characters, by that character. So I've given a string, so you could use a bigger one. For now, that's all I want to put in my class, right? So that's a very simple class in its very simplest form. I haven't used anything special here at all. No delegates, no indexers, nothing. Just a very simple class that I think you can write as a object-oriented student, right? Just what is different from Java is what I have kind of pointed out here. Okay, so that's one class is ready. Okay, now I would like you to create another class, and I want to show you how validation can be done in another way. So you can add another item. There is a new item here. So we'll say, oh, there it is. Class also is here. So it comes to the same form. And we'll call it validator. Remember, the whole concept of object-oriented programming is that you create classes such a way that every class is doing kind of or defining a object. And every class is complete. So if I write a class called validator, in the sense that it has all kind of methods that can validate a decimal, an integer, whether a number is in bounds, whether the field is missing. If I write all these methods together in a class, then I can use it in all other classes in my project, right? So the concept of object-oriented programming was created for this simple reason. We shifted from the paradigm of procedural language to object-oriented for this very important reason, that you define a class in its eternity so that when need be, you can create objects of it and use it, right? So today I'm going to show you validation. It won't be very different. Validation is validation, but I'm just going to put all my validation in a class and then use it in all my other classes. Now, just to show you something else, I'll again put public, it could be a private class also, because the validation, this validation is only required in this project, but it's up to you. It's not as if you can, but you could make a class as private. Nothing stops you. But also, I'm going to create a static class today. You'll say, what is a static class? You don't have to, but there is an option that you can create a static class in the sense that kind of constant class, but that's what a static class is. You can make it static if all the methods in that class are static. Then you can make it static, but that doesn't mean you have to. You can remove the static keyword and it will still work. So I'll show you what I'm going to do in this class, and then we'll talk about the static, right? Now, in classes like this, which are basically for a purpose, like validation, validator classes for validation, the methods in this class will usually be static because you don't want to create objects of this class to use the validating methods. So if I want to create class methods instead of object methods, instead of methods, the methods should be class. All they need is the word static in front of it. So static says that this is a class method, which means you can use it with a class name. You cannot use it with an object name. In C#, it's a syntax error. You cannot. In Java, you can use it with either. You can use it with a class name, or you can create an object of it and use it. But in C#, static methods can only be used with class names, right? You cannot do it syntactically anyway else. Okay, so since the validator class, as the name suggests, will do some kind of validation, and I'll give you a break in 5 minutes. Okay, I know you need a break. So we'll create static methods here. And as I said, you can put as much as you like. For me, I have a code, I have a description, I have a price. So the logical ones for me will be that they must be provided. The fields must be provided. So I'll write a method that allows you to work with field checking, that it is not empty. And of course, I won't write 3 methods. I will write a method, and it will be called from code, from description, and from price. And it will check, oh, it's not empty, and it will work. Also, for my price, I need to check that it is a decimal, that it is a number, right? And it's a real number, and it is within bounds. So I'll write a method that says is decimal, you could call it whatever you like, or whatever is integer or whatever, and then we can write a method within bounds. And the within bounds, what you need to do is, it could be used for something else also. For price, I'll say, oh, it has to be between, the price has to be between, say, 1 and 100. I could do that. Or I could pass the value minimum and maximum. So it has to be a value between minimum and maximum. But prices will be between 0 and something. So I'll pass the value 0 as the lower bound. So it gives you that flexibility of writing your code in an object-oriented way, so that this validator class could be used anywhere else also. Right, so I'm now going to write a validator class. And so as I said, I'll use some common ones. And again, while I do them, I'm going to show you a few things. So what I'm going to do is, again, it can be done in many ways. And the rule of static remains. A static method can only call a static method. So within methods, if they want each other, or if they're calling a variable, using a variable, they should all be static. So I'm going to take a static variable here, which I'm going to call title. Now, I'll tell you what I'm going to use it for. This is the title of my message box, right? So if you like, you can pass a different title for every message box that you create. The user can pass it. But here I'll show you one way, and then just to show you that it can be done in many ways. And I'll write my getter and setter, or the property for it, and title. And I'll write a self-bodied one, just because there's not much. Oh, no. Yep, there's no validation here, right? Oh. What is happening? What am I doing that it's not letting me? Oh, right. Yes, you're right, Daniel. I'm saying, what am I doing? Because it's not giving me that help. Yeah, these are curly brackets, not round brackets. There has to be something, right? Oh. Anything else I've missed? Yeah, the semicolon after set. It still is giving me red squigglies. So red is kind of dangerous. The name title does not exist in the... Oh, forgot my type. There it is, right? So see, it's helpful. You can look at something and say, I'm not doing something right. And that's what programmers do. IDs help us to do all this. So we become lazy, but at least it's easier to do. So I'm going to create a property, and as I said, this property is just being created so that you can get and set. You can set it more than get. You can set it from the outside when you call the validator. I won't do it right now, just for the simple reason that it's not much useful in my case, but it can be done. Okay. Now I'm going to write my methods. So this method, I'll just write them in normal comments, just to save time, please, nothing else. Method to check if the input is provided. So basically you're checking for non-empty, right? So method input is provided. Okay, names of the method should be good so that you can use them. So it's a public method, and it is a static method because I want to use it with my class name. And you can again call it whatever you like. I'll stick to is present. And what I'm passing to this is present is a text box object. Right, so what I'm passing to this is a text box object. I'm assuming it will say that not all codes, so that's okay for now. So here is an example where you're passing, I mean, of course, I'm sure you've seen ints and decimals and strings and arrays being passed, but you can pass it's just an object, right? Text box is just an object. It's just a visual object, like it's a visual object, but there is a class called text box that is available in C#, and you're passing the text box. And what will happen is that you can pass to this is present your code text box, right? You can pass it the description text box, and you can pass it the price text box. So the same method will work for all three. And now as we know that messages are important, the error messages are important. You just don't want to say what is missing, or you can't leave this field empty, which field. So I'll show you how you can do that too. So there's a property that I'll show you. So now again, if you wanted, you could have just initialized it right here. If you want, you can use your title and initialize it here. If you want to give different titles in all these different methods, just, I mean, these are, so the option is that you can give it whatever value you want. If you want to say entry error here, you can give it. If you want to give it something else, that's up to you. Anyway, now, so this entry error is fine. This is just, it will just act as the title of my message box. But now what I also want to do is I want to say something like this: code cannot be left empty, right? Or please provide the code, or please provide the description, or please provide the price. Now, which means there is a code I want to say description, I want to say price. And if I start doing that, then of course I can't write one method. But the trick is this: if you go to the design of your new product and you go to this text field, there is a property called tag associated with every text field. In this property, you can put any string that you want. So if you see, it says user defined data associated with the object. So if I put this is the code field, if I say code here, now I can use this tag property to give an error message, right? It is handy. So code must be provided. Here I'll say description must be, I'll show you how to use it. But before I can use it, you have to set it here. So set the tag property of your text boxes, which you haven't done till now because we never used it. And I'm putting it in caps, my capital P, because it will be my first word in my message. That's why if it was somewhere else, I would write it in lowercase. So I know I'll say code must be provided, description. So that's my first word in a sentence. Therefore, I'm keeping it capital here. That is the reason of putting it in capital. You could have said anything. But why am I putting code, description, and price? Because these are the words I want to use in my error message, right? Now let's see how I can use it in my validator. Okay, so the title is just the title of your or you can do something like this also. You can use it whatever you like, really doesn't matter. So you can take your text box, take its tag property, so it will say code whatever, and then you can concatenate it with your previous title. So notice how I'm using capital T's everywhere. I'm using the getters and the setters. So what it will say is, let me put a blank here. I've put a blank in front of entry error, then it will say code entry error, it will say description entry error, it will say, what is the third one? Price entry error. Okay, so that's my title now, right? So that's how tag will come handy. And two, and again, if you want to make it small, but remember in titles, we always, every word is capitalized. And now I'm going to use my normal message box.show. MESSAGE, why don't you, oh God. I'm going to use the message. Have I misspelled it? No. Why do I see a red squiggly? What have I missed? Semicolons are there. Semicolons are there. Really? Am I MESSAGE message box? Can be a wrong spelling. What am I missing? But a message box is a message box. I mean, it has nothing to do with the form, right? A message box is a class that, do I have to include something? Do you think, sure, for sure. Otherwise, why would it say something? Using it was not there. Definitely. I mean, if it's showing something, there has to be something that is missing. You're right. The using is absent, right? We just take it for granted when we do forms, but here, because I'm writing a class, it doesn't automatically use it. Okay, so message box.show, and now you can say something like this. So I'm going to use the same text box dot tag property, right? So that will come. So I'm showing a message, and then I'll say is a required field or whatever you want. You can kind of not necessarily say is a required. You could say should be provided, must be provided, whatever you like. And I mean, the message depends on you. As long as it is grammatically correct and clear, we are good. And then I'll just do my title here. And then we use our message box dot buttons here. The rest remains the same, and we use our icons here. So now this one method will be called from the 3 text boxes, whatever their names. Hopefully I've changed them. I forget now. Anyway, we can always change them. Something is not, I don't forget. Oh, and the tag is a capital T. You should be smart enough to at least do that, right? So take the tag and then just give the message. And now the other point is you have that text box. So all you can always do a select all and focus. Oh, import. So if you bring your mouse over it, it will show the potential fixes. The first using statement was missing. And another advantage is now I don't have to worry about, all I say is text box dot focus. You can do this is the blank one. So focus is enough. Select all is useless. And then that's it. Right. So one small method. Oh, and return is missing. That's why it's saying. There it is. Right. Return statement was missing. Okay. So now I have to be careful. I can't just return a false. If is present. Okay. I have to be careful now. If what you are giving me, I just can't do that. What was it called? Text property is equal to string dot empty. I just can't return false every time. And if everything goes well, I'll return it true. There. So one small method that will check for an empty field from wherever. And all error messages are linked because I'm passing the tag. So it will say code is a required field, cannot be left blank. Description is a price is a required field, like whatever. And the title will also be good and nice. Code entry error, description entry error, and price entry. And the most important thing is that the validation is self-contained. You have a class that is doing validation. Okay, I'll give you a break. Right, I'll give you a break here. For some reason, I can't put it on GitHub. I think because I can't shut it down and because I was on my home computer. But I will at the end of the day if that works. I mean, I've written to IT to kind of find what the problem is. So the commit is happening, but the sync is not happening. And I think it has to do with the. So it will just sit there. Oh, good. It wasn't working in my office. Okay, so it's on GitHub now. Right, we'll take a break, 20 minutes, please. Come back and then we'll complete the validated class. Okay. And if time does not permit, then we'll do it next week, whatever we are doing. No, that's the main. Yeah, I have to decide short because the other section on Tuesday. That's the last time I see them, so they won't have time to do the test. So I'm just thinking, shall I give the advantage and let everybody do it at home? You know what I mean? Or just not do it, so I can decide on that. Because they don't have a week after they do the class. They have a week, but that's for the final exam. Yeah. So it may, this exam and multiple choice on this may not be possible, but I'm not saying anything right now because I haven't thought about it. Right? I just want to see how to figure it out. But you will have enough notice, of course, of it. Either I just say do it at home and give you half hour to do it, and it's kind of like the only thing in that case is I cannot supervise you, right? So some students are very honest, but some students will take advantage of it. So. So even if you don't have a quiz, but this will definitely be on the final exam. So, because that's the only new topic kind of what you've done, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, lists will be there, but you've already done it, so I'm not sure about the quiz, how to handle that.
And isn't a cheat sheet pretty much just as good as being dishonest when doing a quiz anyways, though?
Come
Either way,
again?
you have, you said for if you send it home or whatever, you would be dishonest.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't a cheat sheet pretty much the same thing? Because either way, you have to look up, find it, and then just.
Yeah, but you see, when they're home, they could have somebody sitting with them and doing it. They could be doing it together. Cheat
Yeah.
sheet is something you made for yourself when you studied, so that's okay. That's your work, right? But they could be opening PowerPoint on another computer. I wouldn't know anything. Here I can monitor it. That's what I mean by dishonest. Somebody maybe like you could just sit, all of you can sit together and do it. I won't know it. I mean, it can happen with anything. It can happen with an assignment also. But with an assignment, I can still catch it. You know what I mean? But with a quiz, I can't. I can do nothing about it. Some students won't even do it. Never do it. I mean, I've found students who won't even ask me a question, even in the exam. Just they don't want to. But there's some students who just do it so like, and it's so bad to. I mean, it's you're learning something. The whole concept is about learning. Like people come do their exam, they want the marks and they leave. Maybe they know it, or maybe they're not interested. Who knows? But if you're paying for something and you want to be a programmer, I'm sure that there is something you gain out of what teachers say. I don't know. We used to. Maybe things have changed. Everybody learns on their own now, right? People are different. Then why not take an online course and get away with it? It's the whole concept of doing it. I don't know. But students are different. Like I never remember missing the class in my whole student life. Could be, I don't know. Like half the class went off after the exam. Can't do much about it. I can only try my level best to teach whatever I can, right? Oh, you know what is happening in that question? Because I was thinking, like, I don't usually do that. When you create a test, you can say that randomize my options also. So it can come in any order. So I can't even say none of the above or none of the below. I'll say none of them or something. None of the other options. I thought, like, I usually don't go. I usually write the none of the above at the end when I'm doing it. But now when I saw it, I kind of remembered I tell also to randomize the options itself. And that's why it was coming at the first one. So I'll just say none of the options. None of the options given. I'll have to be careful about that. I didn't think about it. Okay, let's go to the next one then, right? So this is a very neat method that will check if the field is present or not. And you can add whatever methods you like. I'll restrict it to what I need, but definitely you can add is integer and whatever, right? I'll do the empty one because I'll need that, and I'll do the is decimal, and then I'll do the is within the range. And now when you call them, all you have to be sure that you kind of call them in the right order. So you check for blank first and use the short circuit and it won't do the next one. Use the short circuit and it won't use the next one. So calling them is kind of important. If you want to write them foolproof, then you'll have to do more work, right? Okay, so let's write the next one, which basically is checking that if a number is a message, is decimal or whatever you want to call it. So if it was an integer, it would be just a little different, but I mean, it's not a major difference. Okay, so again, it will be a public method. We'll definitely want it to be static because, again, for the simple reason, we don't want to create objects of the validator class to use the validator methods. Again, it will return a Boolean value, and you can call it whatever. I'll call it is decimal, keeping in the same trend as what we did. And I'm going to pass, again, a text box because you'll always pass an input, right? So it's saying what input is coming to me. Oh, and of a type text box. Right, so again, I've already checked that it is not a blank, and this is my next method that I'll check. So as I said, I've made it easy. I mean, I'll call them in the right order in my if statement, but if you want to really make it foolproof, we will make it foolproof too. We can. The concept here is I just kind of give you a different way of validation, and I also talk about methods and static method. So I've taken a local variable number that I've initialized to 0. I could have, it was not necessary because I'm going to use it in try parse. But anyway, then I do a decimal dot try parse. As I said, many of you do it. So try to parse whatever I have passed to you, whatever the method gets. And remember, try parse, it needed an out parameter. And I'll again kind of help you with out. Out simply says that it is a reference variable. It is a reference variable. So if the parse happens properly, then the value will go back in that number. but you don't have to initialize in out, but in ref you definitely have to initialize it, right? So if things will, I mean, if everything, it can parse it properly, then all I'll do is I'll just return a true, right? I'll just return a true. Now and of course the number is going back to, now what doesn't it like? Am I missing a bracket? Yeah, there it is. Oh, dot text. Just because I'm calling it text box, I'm forgetting my dot text with it. Right, so you take it, you parse it. I use a try parse here. You could have used a decimal dot parse and done it. This is just much easier, right? So if it is parsed, that means it was a decimal number, and I'm doing a decimal dot parse. So if you give anything like alphanumeric or this is decimal, so it's not an integer. So if you give an alphanumeric, then it will throw back error to you. Okay, so anything that's not a decimal, it will throw back an error. And in all other cases, you will do the same thing that you were doing. In this one, I'll just copy and then we'll change the messages. So the title again can remain the same, or if you like, you can say something like, instead of entry error, in the first one, you could have said missing field. Here you could have said non-numeric input. Like, you can give different titles if you want. You know what I mean? I'm just sticking with entry error just to show you, but it can be anything. So here, instead of saying entry error, you could have said missing field. Just see that it looks proper. Code missing. Yeah, we could say code missing, not missing field, code missing. Here we could say non-numeric and then show non-numeric whatever price, or you know what I mean? Like, you can combine it whatever you want. So here, of course, this message will change. It's not about is a required field. We are talking about cannot be non-numeric, right? So we are basically checking. So we'll say whatever must be a decimal value or a real number, right? Now with decimal and real, it's kind of the same for a common user. Right, with a common user, you can talk about whole numbers and you can talk about real numbers, but who knows whether a common user also knows about it. But I mean, we have to give some proper message. So it will say whatever price must be a real value or a real number. Right, and then again, the entry error is just going to say entry error price or price entry error. So whatever makes more sense to you. So you can say must be a real number, and you can always put a dot dot dot, cannot contain non-numeric characters or cannot be non-numeric. So the messages have to be neat and clean, guys. They have to be. It's very important. If I keep seeing input string is not in correct format or something is wrong, like, what's the sense? Like, it doesn't make sense at all. Always try to see, if I'm the user, what would I like to see? And always think it that way. So there it is. That's my is decimal. So if it was an is integer, all I'll do is replace this decimal by the int one, and my job is done. Right? So now this method will commonly, for, of course, you will not call it for code and description. You will only use it for price. But this method will check your price. And if it is whatever we'll do in our code there, but it will return a true if everything is okay, and it will return a false if something is wrong. Now keep in mind too that the try parse throws will return a false even if it is not in range, right? But I haven't talked about range here because I'll write a separate method for it. The range may not be minimum to maximum. It could be anything. So I'll write a separate method for it. But it will be, you can always add must be a real number, and you can always say within range or something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a third method. Who are you? There you are. And this one is going to check within range. Okay. So we'll write a very generic method which you can use for whatever you like, in the sense of you can pass it any parameters you like. So again, I'll create a public static bool is within range. And now here, instead of just passing one parameter, the text box to be tested, of course, makes sense. And I'll also pass the lower range and the upper range. So you could be passing it, if it was for integers, it would be different. If it is for decimal number, I need the decimal one. So I'll use the decimal one. But if it was for integers, I would use integer minimum and integer maximum. So you will write another method if you were checking for an integer range. Okay, and again, now it's kind of, it's generic. If I was going to test within lower limit and upper limit, I would pass it decimal.min value, decimal.max value. If it is a price, I'll pass minimum should be 0, I could say, like 0 if you're allowing 0, otherwise maybe whatever, 1, whatever. Real numbers, there's a little dicey, you have to be careful, but whatever it is, right? And now you'll say, what if it is not numeric? So again, as I said, I'm writing these methods and I'll call them in the right order. That's important for me. Otherwise, every method must be testing everything. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a local variable again. Do I need it? Yeah, I do. Now, I'm just using convert here because I've used parse many times. So it is convert to decimal and take your text box. Of course, it has many dot text. Now, if you bring your mouse over it, it will let you know. It converts a base type, data type to another base type, right? This one says it throws a format exception and it does throw an overflow exception. But again, I'm not catching all the exceptions here just because I will call is within range only if my number is decimal. I'll call is decimal only if it is not blank. So my sequence is important there. If I start, but nothing stops you. If you want to do everything in every method, all you have to do is just add. So I can do a try, I mean, I can just say return whatever, right? So, but I'm not doing it. I'm assuming that is within range is being called after you've checked that it is a decimal number. But it could be, definitely it should be generic, then you can use it in any code. I'm just doing it for myself. So if my number is greater than or equal to minimum and it is less than or equal to maximum, I'm good to go. Greater than equal to minimum, less than equal to max. Right, which means it's within range. So I'm going to return a true. Else, again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to write a message and tell the user that it is not within range or whatever. So I'm going to do an else. Oh, you don't have to do an else even with the return. Keep that in mind. I mean, you don't have to. When return means go back. So I don't need an else here. I did an else here just also by habit, but you don't need to. So I'll write it without else here. So return true means go back. So if it will go back automatically, I don't have to write an else. Same like exception handling. Exception handling throws an exception, so nothing goes forward. Return returns to the calling program or calling code, and so nothing happens. So here I'll say, of course, I'll change this message, right? And you can say something. You can show all the values. So this must be between. And remember, I have my min and max. So I don't have to worry between min and max. Oh, min and max are decimals. Okay. Again, if you want to format them with 2 places of decimal, we'll just have to say min.toString 2f, right? I mean, you can do it any way you like. I'm trying to do it as quickly as I can so that I can move forward. Though you have, I mean, your group is no problem. Okay, so this must be between this and this. Are we good? And max. Yep, I think we are good. You can always add more. And in these buttons and in these methods, not buttons, I'll do a select all also. I forgot to do in this one also. Whenever you have more, like in the blank one, it doesn't make sense, but here I can do it. I can say text box dot select all. So select all is again a very user-friendly way of, the user doesn't have to delete or anything. Select all will select it. Some people prefer to clear it. I just prefer to select it because at least you see what is wrong. When the message comes up, it is telling you that is what is wrong. So that's my preference. Again, in your application, if you were writing it, you'll say, oh, I'll just clear it, give a message and clear it. Sure. Right? So that depends on you. So I'll only do this in my validator. That's what I want in my validator class. But of course, you can say is integer. You can say is within range for integers. You can make these methods self-complete. I mean, instead of just doing what you need to do, here I could have parsed, and if I could have said, I could have used a try parse and return false and so on. So it's all up to me how I write it. I'm only writing it to show you that this class is an independent class of its own, whose main sole purpose is to validate your data. And all your validation can come in methods here, right? Now, what I was talking about, missing XML. What I was talking about is you don't have to, but if all your methods are static in a class, you can, if you like, make your class static. So it's not necessary, but this option is available. This is option is available. The green squigglies are just talking about XML comments, guys. That's all it is talking about. So you know about static methods and static variables, but I mean, a class can also be static. It can be. It just has one copy at one place. So, I mean, it's not necessary, but you could do it. So now this class is complete. My validator class is complete. Okay, we can save this. Hopefully there are no compilation errors for sure, but definitely runtime we'll see when the time comes. Okay, so these two classes are ready. Now I just want to show you what I've done in the class DB class, which I've provided you. And actually, did I or did I not? I think I did. Yeah, I've also given it in binary. But this one is what we did last week, right? So let me go through this quickly so that it makes sense to you. It was just a very quick one that I wrote. I didn't even write my try catches, but I'll write my try catches. What this class is doing is, it's called product DB for database, but it's working with files. That's all it is. But database simply means collection of data, right? So what I've done here is, last week we learned all this. I've created a class. I have used some constants. So if you wanted, you could be putting all your files in this particular directory. And I've showed you another way of creating a file right in your current project. I'm not sure how many of you know it, but this stands for the parent directory. So what am I saying? I'm saying that this file products.txt is in the parent of the parent. Now you'll say, what is this parent of the parent? Keep in mind, when a program is run, it is run from here. Your exe is right here in the debug folder in bin. So when I say parent of debug, it is bin. And then when I say parent of bin, it is product maintenance. And in the product maintenance directory, this file will get created because I'll be opening it in open or create, right? So instead of using, so that's another option. Last time we used an open file dialog box, which is a perfectly fine option. But here I thought I would just show you a little different. You can create your own path if you like, where you are saying all my files will be in this directory. There's nothing wrong in it at all. But as I said, it's always a good idea to keep your files in your project, right? The files that you're using. And the bin debug is the default. I could have only said products text, and then it will be created right in the bin debug folder, because when you run your program, the file that gets executed is product maintenance.exe. And where is it sitting? It is already sitting in the debug folder. So if I didn't give this dots, my products.txt will be created right in bin debug, which is a common place to find files. There's nothing wrong. But if you want to create it in the project and not in this particular, all you have to do is just go to the right folder, and ... stands for parent folder. So when I give one ... I'm going to bin. Who is debug's parent? Bin. And then when I give another ... where am I going? To product maintenance. So now I'm in the main folder. And then I say save my file in that particular main folder. For your information, if you're unaware of it, a single dot also is correct, but not here, but it is valid. A single dot stands for the current directory. Double dot in Windows operating system stands for the parent directory. Okay, so I just thought I would show it to you. Instead of using an open file dialog box, I kind of went this way. But if you wanted to create something in this directory, I've shown you how you can create it. Okay, so this class has two methods only. One, get the products, and one, save the products. Okay, now the get products is again giving you an example of if the directory doesn't exist, it will create one. I've created a text in object of type stream reader, and I'm using the FS that we did last time. It was commented out. I used two things last time. This time I've just been static. Notice the mode. It says open or create. Open or create says if the file exists, open it for reading. If the file does not exist, create a new file. So an empty new file is created. So when you run the program for the first time and there is nothing in your inventory, you can use that form to put products in your inventory. Right? That is the main purpose of using open or create. So the application is run, inventory is empty. I want to add products. I'll use my product form. And there when I do a save, here when it comes for the first time, it will open the file, try to look for it. If it exists, good. If it doesn't exist, it will create it. And then whatever you save in it will go there. So I've used the open or create instead of open that I did last week. Right? And the read is the read mode. And then what do? I peek in. So if it is a new file, then of course this will not happen. Text in.peek only looks at it. Remember I said just peeks, doesn't read it. So it says go to the end of the file, get one line at a time from my file. And here is something important now, right? Again, it's very common. It's a string method, the split is, but my aim is to show it to you so that you understand it. So now in my file, I'm saving code. I'm using the piping as my separator, description, piping, price. So I pick up the whole line, I split it on the pipe. What will happen? The code will go into the first one, column 0. The description will go into columns 1. That's the name of my variable, columns. And my price will go into columns 2. So the 3 variables, so it's kind of a record, right? It's a record with code, description, price separated by pipeline. I'm assuming pipeline. If you were using comma, you would put a comma, right? Or you can always provide the user with a character. You can take a character and say, this is my dividing character. So what is this while loop doing? It is reading one line at a time from the file. If the file is empty or creating it for the first time, nothing gets populated, right? Which is fine. When the program starts, the list is empty. But after that, it will pick up one line at a time, read line, will pick up one line, it will split it on that piping character. I'll create a product object, call the default constructor, and in the 3 fields, I will put the 3 values. And notice what am I saying? Product.code, code with the capital C. You are using the set method of the code property. Not the small. I can't use the small anyway, it's a private variable. Right? So I'm using the methods on the left-hand side. That's calling the set method. So as I said, when you put it on the left-hand side, it is calling the set method. When you put it on the right-hand side of an assignment operator, it is calling the. So I've initialized all 3, and then I add that product to a local file also, products, because this is what will come on the screen. So this is reading from the file. Now, of course, this is not the best way, and I will, because I was doing it very quickly, I will put this in, because we all know all these will throw exceptions. Particular that you catch all exceptions. This time I just made a very rough file and I didn't do it, but assuming if things are okay, which we can't assume, and then I'll close my file and I'll return products. So anytime you call this method, anytime you call the get products method, it picks the file, picks the contents of the file, puts it in a list and gives the list to the whoever calls it. That's what it is doing, right? So every time it is reading from the file, populating a list and giving the list to whoever calls it. And who will call it? That list, the first form will call it. This form will call it to populate this list. This is where I'll use it. Right? Now let's look at the second one. The second one is saving it. So when you press the save button, of this form, this is what happens. What does it do? It says, okay, you want to save it. So it will create an output stream writer object. The path is already given in the create mode. So every time existing will be removed and new will be added, because God knows what you've changed and what not. There's no update here. So I've assumed if there is an update, then I can be changing stuff also in the write mode. I pick up everything from the list using the for each loop and I put it in my output file. Textout.write, textout.write, write. Why the write? Because I want to put one record in one line. We used write line last time in the example, and today I'm using write for the first 2 because it will put the code, it will put the piping character, put the description, put the piping character, and then I do a write line price, and then it will go to the. So one record is being saved per line, and in that record there has to be something that separates it. It could be a tab character, it could be a comma, it could be a piping character. You have to do something. Or the other option is that one record is broken up into 3. You have code description price, code description price. That's another thing. But it's a record, so it's better to put it in a line.
When you bring it back into those pipes, it won't be.
No, they won't. When you split on those pipes are not included. You're just saying on what it needs to be split.
Yes.
So when I save it, I put them. When I read them, I split it. When I split it, the split method will take your record, which has 3 parts, and it will split it on that. So the first part will go into column 0.
Split icon, like it searches for those and splits it on that?
Yes, yes. Okay. Split is a method that will look for that character and it will split. Right. That's what it does. Exactly like the split in Java with your string method. So if I bring my mouse here, there it is. See, you can give a character. You can give more than one character also. I'm using the character. Splits a string into substrings that are based on the characters in the array. So you can give split it. You can give an array. I can say split it on comma or split it on this. I can give more options. But I can't do that. Like you have to remember in files, you exactly have to know how the data was saved to read it the right. You can't do anything. Same with databases. Like you can say, you have to know the name of the table, you have to know the name of the fields, only then can you work with the table in a database. Same with the file. You have to know the name of the file, you have to exactly know how data is saved, and only then can you read it. So here what I'm doing, instead of doing read lines and write lines, which I already did last week, here I did a write and a write line, so one per record. And when I read it as a go, the whole line, and then I use the split method of the string class to split it on the piping character. I have to know how I'm working. There is no other way, like absolutely no other way, right? So again, so this is going to read from right to the file. So when I run the program for the first time, if I don't have anything in my inventory, I have an empty file, so nothing will come in my list. As soon as I start saving, my file will be created and there it will go. I won't have time today with you guys, but if I have, I will. What I've done is I've also given a binary file at the bottom. Like if you comment that and comment this is working with the binary file. Doesn't make a lot of difference to you, but instead of stream reader, a binary reader. The rest, instead of the peak character, the name of the method changes. And read decimal and read strings to read instead of read lines, right? Because that's what is available. So binary file. And similarly in save, write. I don't have to bother at all in binary files. You just say write. You can't work with a binary file as you can work with a text file. So the advantage of a text file is it is human readable. You could create it even without a program, which is perfectly fine. The disadvantage is everything is text. So if you read a number, you have to convert it and use it. With binary files, it is not human readable. You cannot create it. You will have to write a program to create it. And then when you read it, then it's easy. Read a decimal, read an integer, read a string or whatever. So they both have their advantages or disadvantages. So the same code, this code does not, then it will be hardly, like we go through it, there will be hardly any difference. Of course, the classes you will be using will be binary reader, binary writer, and so on, and the methods that you'll be using will be just write. You don't have to put any piping characters or anything, because it's not human manageable, you know what I mean? So when you do a read, you say read decimal. When you do a write, there is only one write in binary writer, write, the data that has to be written. How it is writing it, it writes it and what it puts at the end of that field so that it can recognize it when it reads. It's not our headache, it's the headache of the system. The disadvantage on the other side, it's not human readable. So you can't open it to see, oh, all my products added. So you can't do any manual check. That's it. So if time permits, I will, but I did keep the code here that if it is. So this is your product DB file. Simply is using files from our last week. But I again emphasize, because it is going to be a coding test, and the new coding we've learned after the midterm is files, more arrays. That's what the question will be, right? So see that you understand them well. Okay, so do some, I don't know how much time you will get, but play with them a little. Okay?
That code, like the commented code, if we uncommented it, it would work?
It will still work. It will work with a binary file instead of exactly, it will work. Yes, it will. Yeah, I've already tested it. I've tested with both of them. Text file is human readable. I'll show you that it exists. With binary, when I open it, it was all numbers. Right, so it definitely works. Thing that is missing right now in this code are try catches. That's the only thing, which is an important thing. I don't say it's not important, but logically it is correct. Definitely needs try catch blocks. I just thought of the last minute that I won't have time, so I kind of quickly did it. So I just thought I would save time. Now the two important designs. One, what do I want to do when the user clicks on add? What do I want to do when the user clicks on delete? And exit, of course. And how, when this form comes up, what do I want in my list? So a load event handler, an add product event handler, a delete product event handler, and an exit event. These are the 4 event handlers that are required in this form. The ... in front of add and delete simply means that another form will open up or a dialog box will come up. That's why when we put the 3 dots, right? So let's write this first, and then we'll go from here and write the add one. Both are easy. It's not a big deal. Now, this is something that you've done many times, but again, it could be anything, right? Okay, so let's start. So we'll write the load first. So load says what happens when the form loads. I hope I haven't, I can't remember now. Button, there I go. So my first mistake, I forgot this. Change the name of the button. And again, whatever you want to do, please be consistent. So this is button add product. Please change their names. I thought I forgot about it. This is button delete product, exactly saying what it says on it, okay, without the dots. I could have done another button update, because that's what you do with inventory. You either delete inventory, or you add new inventory, or you update inventory. That's all you do with inventory, with the product, right? So maybe I can ask you to do it. Okay, so these are the 3 button names. Hopefully this is a list box. List products is okay, nothing else. So everything is named now. Okay, so we were in the load. Okay, so what do you want to do in load? When the program loads, this is my main form. The other is my form that will be called. So when I load the form, I want to populate that list with the products in my file. So there is already a method there, whatever it was called, get products or whatever we called it, we'll just use it. Okay, so let's load it. What will we need? We'll need a list. So let's create a private list of type product. So though it's not new to you, it shouldn't be new to you. You can create a list of any objects, right? It be decimals or integers or strings or user defined objects. So product is a class that we've already defined. So what I'm creating here is a list of product, and I'll just call it products. And again, you don't have to initialize it null. We already know that by default variables in the module level, here we call them module level, in classes we call them class level, just to differentiate. But anyway, at the module level are by default null. Okay. Okay, so what do you want to do here? You want to take that products, and you want to take that products, and you want to get the products from that, it was called product DB. There it is. Right, so I can use the class name because they were all methods, and the name of the method was called get products. Okay, so get the products from the product DB. Now I could write the rest of the code here too. There is no big deal, but just so that you get it, don't forget. I mean, I'm sure you won't forget, but get populate your list or whatever you would like to call it. I'm just using the names I've already used so that I don't have to think of them, since I just did it yesterday. So of course you'll have an error here. It will say it doesn't exist. You can take its potential fix. You'll say generate a method, and then it will be generated. Right? So again, just so that when we are writing, we are just learning how to also write methods. And this is a very simple method, takes no parameters, returns void. And what will we need here? It's in my list already. All I'll need here is a for each loop. But before we do that, take your list products and clear that list, whatever is in it before. Oh, now I have to again remember with combo boxes and list boxes, there is that items array, not an array, a list. So when you say clear, you have to say items.clear. So I always clear it before I populate it, because every time you're reading from the file. Maybe we could have made it better. If I had more time, I may have worked more on it. Anyway, now use your for each loop. Pick up one product at a time from your list in, right? So for each says pick up one product from your list. The list is a list of products, and add it to your items.add. There. Oh, can I do a, no, I can, maybe. No, add range adds from an array. If I was using an array, I could have done it. Oh, well, anyway. I mean, things can always be improved. Okay, so take your product and use that get display method that we wrote and pass it that. This is where we are putting it in the list. So I'll put some spaces in between the tab character. So when it comes on the screen, it will give code, a tab, description, a tab, and a price. Get display method here. So this get products method does what? We just saw it in the DB. It was reading from the file and creating a list, and it passed you the list back, and I've assigned it to a list variable, list object. Job done. It should be populated now. So if I try it, of course it will be empty for the first time, remember. So if I do it, if I run my code, there is no file called products, or is there? If I was working on it yesterday, no, there is not. See, it's an empty list because there is no file. Once I start saving, then the next time I run it, it will come. So there is nothing much to do here, so I'll close this. Okay, so that's my add. And again, let's do a delete. So in delete, you are deleting a product. So the user chooses a record on the screen in the list and does delete. So definitely you can only delete if the user has chosen something. And how do you check that? Selected index is not equal to -1. Confirm from the user and remove, and you're done. Right? Okay, because it's a list. Okay, so you can do whatever, I mean, more you like, but what I've done is simply this. I checked if you can take an integer, you don't have to. You can call it selected position if you like. If you have to use it more than once, then I would say use an integer, but otherwise you don't have to. I can't remember how many times I used it, but it is called selected index. Same concept, like a combo box. Till date, we haven't used a list, but it's the same concept, right? Now, if position is not equal to -1, that means you did select something. So you could have just used this here right away here. I can't remember if it is required more time. What do? Confirm from the user once more, just to be on the, whenever there is a delete, you just do it. You can declare your variable right here. Confirm from the user. Show your message box. You can ask, do you want to delete this, the selected product? Confirm delete. Show the yes and no buttons. You could do yes, no, and cancel also. Yes, no, cancel. Yeah, you can do yes, no, cancel. It's no big deal at all. What will happen in cancel? Nothing. And no also nothing. So whatever you like, either one will do. It doesn't matter. We haven't used the yes, no, cancel. Then the icon. And this is a question mark. And then if you want, the default button, and you can make it the button one. I mean, you don't have to have a default, but anyway, it's just a habit, nothing else. So in delete, the first thing you do is you check. And again, you didn't need this at all. You could have just done this, right? All you do is you confirm from the user that if you really want it. And if the user says yes, all I have to do is, am I saving it somewhere? So the user is deleting it. No, I don't think so, right? No. So I have the position. All I do is, what was it called? List products. Dot. There should be a remove again, or a remove at. Oh, items. Forget my items. Dot remove at. There it is. Remove at. There has to be. It's the same combo box concept, right? And you can say remove at position, selected position. So here, maybe that's why I thought, why did I use a integer? Or you could again say this. Anything else? No. Yep, good. Job done. But if I remove it from the list, it will go from here, and now I have to put it back in my file, right? It has to go back to the file. So I'll have to, in the same position, what was it called? I can't even remember now. Oh, what was the sense of asking if I'm not even checking? If confirm is equal to dialog box result dot yes. There it is. If it is equal to yes, otherwise doesn't make sense, right? So if it is equal to yes, only then I do it. Otherwise, what's the sense? And and it was called, hopefully I can remember, it was called product DB. Product DB. There it is. And the method was called save something. There it is, save products. Right? And what did save products need from you? Oh, it was already taking, no, it requires a list. Okay, it requires a list. So where is your list here? It is LST products dot, or shall I just say this? I don't think, I'll have to think, because this is not my list. This is a list that is coming from the, oh, how silly. We are maintaining one. We are maintaining one. That is. Anything else? You can give a message if you like, it has been deleted, but I think that's it. Remove it from this list, put the list back, and oh. Yeah, exactly what you said. There it is. I'll have to put it back in the list. Right. Because that's what I was confused when I was also removing it. You're saving the list. The list is coming here, and the list has to, you have to remove it physically from that list on the screen. So you'll have to fill the product list again. Call that method again. Remember I wrote this method, here it is. So it's handy to kind of do it again. Oh no, something is missing. I'll have to get the products again also.
So you're removing it from.
Wait, yeah, okay. So wait, give me a minute. Let me think for a minute. I load it when it begins. I fill the box. Okay, the user says I want to delete something. I remove it. Something is wrong here, right?
You're removing it from your list. You're not removing it
from your products list also, right? Okay, so what do I do?
You don't actually need to remove it from your list.
List, yeah. If I do this, then I don't have to do this, I think, right? Can I physically? Yeah, then I don't have to do the last one. Yeah. Yeah. So instead of fill here, what was that method called? I have to save. I've saved it back. Actually, I must be removing it from two places then, right?
No, you just have to remove
or just save. Call that method. What was that method called? Product DB dot. No, something is not right. Okay, I want to remove it from the display, and I also want to remove it from my list called products. Yes. Okay.
So the bottom part removes it from your.
The list. Yeah, this one removes it from the list, right? Now I have to remove it from my list also. Okay, so it was called products dot, same thing, remove or remove at. Oh, now not remove at. I can do a remove at here. I can. The position here is the same as the position here. I can still do it. Yeah, I can do it. Or I can do a remove, but I can do a remove at also. No big deal. There, should work, right? So remove from the display, remove from the list, assuming it is at the same position. It will be at the same position. I can always use a remove to be sure. No? Oh, yes, I'm doing sorted there. Yeah, that could be another problem. Okay. So I can't remove from the. Yeah, get the product out. You're right. Get the product out. Oops. Okay. The remove at?
Yeah.
No, the remove at just removes it, but I need that product to search in the list. Okay, so what I can do is, does remove at return something? Yeah, in Java it returns. Here it returns a void. Okay, so I'll have to do something else. This is what I'll have to do. I'll have to use a local variable of type product. Call it P, right? Take that P, get the element at that position, and that position is called LST products. Can I say, I should be, can I say this? Not I, sorry, a selected position. Oh, sorry, dot items. Oh, God. No, it doesn't like it.
You mean use for that?
because it's a kind of an array, right? The array items is an array, but it doesn't like it. Shall I? No, remove at is no. Is remove, does remove? Oh, that's all. Oh, okay. It says it's an object. Yeah, perfect. Yep, right. Yeah. Because everything in a list is everything in items is a object. Okay, there we go. Yep. Now here, instead of this, I can simply say P also if I like. I mean, it will work with the P also now. Remove P will also work. Remove at. Yeah, you can now use remove also if you like. Because I have that P, I have the product, I can now use remove if you like. I mean, we've done remove at many times, but if you like, we can do this also. Both will work now because I have it. Is there no other better way of doing it? To get it? An easier way? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's the only thing I can think of right now to get it. Do you think there is an easier way? I can't remember what I did yesterday. Because I've kept my list sorted, right? I have to be careful about that. If it was not sorted and it was at the same position, then I was okay. But I have made my list sorted. So that's the only way I can think of. If not, then I could have simply used my own products list and at position I. Yep, that was a good point. I didn't think about it. You can use your own products list and it's just a list and use that I index selected position. But just because our list is sorted, I made it sorted. And I don't know, I think it should be, I don't know, what do you say? Whatever. You can now use P here. So you can use either of these and both will work. I'll just kind of write this one because we've used the other one many times. That's all, nothing else. You can use this also, yeah. So I'll put a note for not myself, but of course you pointed it out, but how are we sorting it? When I say sorted and it has, think about it for a minute. When I say sorted and it has three fields, it will sort by the code field. I mean, it's normal sorting. It doesn't know about that it is a record or whatever. Yep. Yeah. Sorted in display. Yeah, if I hadn't sorted it, then I could have simply used I, like your selected position with that square brackets that I was using. Yeah. Oh, well, whatever it is, if we've done it, we'll just do it that way. So that should be the delete, right? And the exit is the third one. Let's try the exit. Not design, sorry. The exit is simple. I mean, of course, we can do we can do more than that. I can write the form closing and so on, but again, I'll kind of restrict myself today. With your class, I have more time. I can do it. Oh, what? It doesn't like this. Am I missing a bracket? I must be, of course. Oh, I'm out of class. Yeah, you're right. Whose was that? No, I need one more bracket, right? Okay, so you are missing. I'm missing one here. This. Okay, so now arrows and arrows and arrows. Still missing one. One more? Oh, this is matching. This is matching. This is matching. Here. This is of the. Oh, one more here, right? Yeah, right. Of the and the namespace. Yeah, one more. Oh, panic, nothing else. Okay, so that takes care of the main form, right? So again, with delete, we could have changed it. I'll just stick to what I've done so that it's not wrong. Now the load, this one, the save button here and the cancel button here. So cancel is not so tough. Save is just reading the data. Okay, so let's double click on save now. Oh, that's me somewhere. Must have done it yesterday. And then when I go back to the design, it will give me an error. I had thought I remember doing it and I said, oh, I'll remove it. There it is. There it is. Okay. So, and again, believe it or not, I have maybe 8 to 10 empty stubs in midterms for some students. Like, I know you can double click. I mean, that mistake can happen. But clean your code before you submit it. It's so untidy. Labels are being clicked and whatever is being clicked. You kind of think that maybe they don't know what they are doing. Okay, there it is. Okay, what do you want to do in save? If the data is valid, all you want to do is you want to save the product, right? That's all you need to do. And all that validity, so that I don't have to remember their names, but all that validity we've already done. So we don't have to worry about it. Okay. So now the important thing for me is that I have to kind of call it in sequence because of how I've written it. So I'll first call the blank one, whatever it was called is present. Then I'll call the is decimal one for the price. And at the end, I'll call the is within range for the price. So my sequence is important just because of how I have written it, nothing else. Okay, so let's take, I need a private product object because I'm saving a product. So I need it. And again, if I need it only in save, I'll remove it. Okay, so if I'll start, I want to check that all my 3 fields are non-empty. My price is a decimal and my price is within range, right? So keeping that sequence in mind and keeping it with how I show it on the form, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take validator dot is present. Now, what is the first text box? Oh, hopefully. Okay, text code. Okay, so these are okay. I've changed their names. Okay, so the first one is text code. That's the text box I'm passing, right? So I'm checking if my code is present. And my second one, validator dot is present. And notice I'm doing it in the sequence so that my messages come in the sequence. Keep in mind, if you're taking input from the user, it's a good idea to show the error messages in sequence one at a time. And of course, it's a short circuit and it won't even go to the other one. It will only show one message at a time. My second field was called something txt description. There, right? I'll just go to a new line because there are so many, but anyway. And validator is present. My third text box is again a text box, price. And this is another use of the short circuit and. If you write it in the correct sequence, then it won't even check the second. I mean, once it knows it is false, it won't even check. So I check if it is not empty. And after that not empty, I check if it is a decimal. And is decimal again required a text box. So the text box that I'm passing is price. And this and looks untidy, but at least all the work has been done at one place, right? And the last one is validator within range, something within range, is within range. Okay, now this depends on what you want to give. You want to, of course, give the price text box, but what is the range you want to give? You could give 0 to 100. You could give whatever you like. You could give min value to max value, but of course, for price, we won't do that. We'll go 0, right? You can remove the equal from there. You can say it should be greater than 0. We said an equal, greater than equal to. I can't say 0.11 or whatever. But whatever your minimum requirement is, you can go. And my maximum, again, depends on you. You can go till the max value of decimal if you like. But prices usually will not go that big, but you can always decide. So you have that liberty or that flexibility of passing these two values. So I don't know, you can say my products will be no more than $500 and you can put in a value of 500. Again, I won't use magic numbers 0 and 500. I'll create two constants, minimum price, maximum price, and use them. But again, the idea here is that you decide what you want to give. So if you wanted to give that max value, which is of course not logical here, that's all I'll do. Right? So notice now within range method can just checking the range of any decimal number. If it was an int, I would use an int dot max values and min values there. Right? If everything is okay, so definitely, I don't know, that looks very odd, right? I don't, $1,000, whatever. If everything is validated, then that means you validated all your input. If all input has been validated, what do you want to do? You want to create a P product and pass what? Pass the text code dot text description dot text Remember it required, oh no, what was it requiring? String, and a decimal, I think. It will help you. There it is, and decimal. Take your price. And before you pass it, you have to convert it into a decimal. And I know that it is a valid decimal. I've already done my validation. So there's nothing, I mean, it's okay to do just convert here. So use your convert dot to decimal and pass the text price dot text to it. Am I missing one? No, I'm good. And I'm good. There it is. That's what save, I mean, not, it's not yet complete, but anyway. So when you do a save, you create a product. And what was that called? Anything else that I have to do here? That was calling this one when it comes. I think I'm good, right? This form comes up. Oh. Remember we did a code validation. It was an argument exception. And we were passing a message from there. So if you try to do that, it won't work. You must give some, we'll do a message box again, just being very quick, just because I know the time is short. Not making it pretty, but making it working. Okay, so if you catch something, you don't want to close the form. But if you want, if everything is okay, you want to close this form. Right, so if everything is okay, you create a product. And give me a minute, I have to pass this product. Okay, that's fine. I'm missing something. I've created a product, I have to give it back. I will. No big deal. Okay, I'm missing something in it, but this is button save. Right, this is button save. Or do I have an extra again? Catch. Yeah, if. There. So that's my button save. I've saved it. I haven't yet got it there, but that's okay. What else did we have? Cancel. Cancel is an easy one. If the user cancels, then there is nothing to do. This dot close. Remember, not application dot exits here. The second form is being closed. So this dot closes here and this dot closes here. Anything else? No. So saving is creating a product, but I have to pass it back. So I'm going to write another a public method here. I'm going to call it, it is returning a product. What do you like to call it? Get product. See why? Because this is a click button. The return type is void. Can't do much about it. So I'm going to create my own method called whatever you would like to call it, get new product or whatever. There. Right, so I've written a public method. The rest two will be private because they are related to the form. But this method is public and it's calling, what did I call it? P, I think, right? Yeah, P, product P. There. Now it's being returned here. It should be product main design. Okay. Okay, right. Okay, so what we have to do is now we have to add it. So I double clicked on add and I get my stub now. Right, so what should you do here now? You have to show that form on the screen and get that product. That's what add is. Right, so show that form on the screen, like show that form. So that form is called form something. There it is, form new product. Create a new form. What would you like to call it? New product? Oh no, that was also called. Yeah, that's okay. Or add product, just so that we know. Okay, create a new form. Show it on the screen. Show dialog box. Okay, so I show it. If the user says cancel, it closes anyway. If the user says save, I need to get it. How will I check that now? I did an add.
Pass it through, or are you just going to save it to the file and reopen the file?
I have created a product there. I want to get it here. Yeah. That's what it should do, right? Let me think. I have to think because I just was doing it on the run. I can't remember what I've done when I was doing it, but give me a minute and I will be able to let you know what I did. And if it doesn't work, yeah, I'm sure it works. But anyway, create a show it. What if the user does a cancel there? Then what comes back will be, okay, we can do this. Yeah, then what comes back is a null, right? Okay, so create a product here. What was that called? No, add product. Dot get new product, something like that. There it is. Okay, and now I can check if P is not equal to null. Right? This is the only way to check, because if he canceled, P is null, and if he did not cancel, some P came back. Okay, so now when it comes back to me, now I want to do what? I want to do a few things, of course, and those few things are, what was my list called? Products. Add it to your list. Job number 1. Oh, now I'll have to display it again. I'll have to display it again, but that's okay. Okay, so take your product DB and save it as you were saying. Oh, the list, sorry, products. And call that fill product list box again. There it is. So if a new product was added, I have to add it to the list which is populating it. I also have it added to the file and then again retrieve it. Yes. At all times, my list must be updated. So I know it's a lot of writing and reading.
Wouldn't it be easier just to do it in the other form?
But remember that form, keep in mind what does that form do? The add product is this form's responsibility. That form is only add a new product. Create a new product more than anything. Create a new product. That's its only responsibility. The addition button is here. So that this job must be done. Because remember the fill product list is box, this method is here. That method I could have used, but I have to add it to my own list also here. And this method of fill product list is in this class.
Yeah, you wouldn't fill it, but you just run the fill once you come back on this way.
Yeah, so I mean, then the only thing that is left is the first two statements, the products list is not, there is no list in that form at all. It's only creating a product.
Yeah, you just have to append it to the file.
But I also have to add it to my list, which is populating my list box display. So this is the place where that button is. So it is its job, right? Yeah, I thought about that, but then I thought that form was, it's the only job it is doing is get a product. That's it, one product. All the other job is this form. So I kept everything here, right? Okay, let's see if we can handle it. Hopefully. Okay, so when it starts, I'll take 4 minutes. We can come back to binary again. It's not a big deal. Okay, so nothing, because there is nothing, right? I add a product. Now, if I'll give kind of write codes first, just for the heck of it. And then I'll show you that it works, right? Okay, so populating, right? Now, if I can always delete, I can add another product. I haven't done it should be unique. Codes should be unique. You can do much, much more, like codes have to be unique and so on. And then there is no end to it, of course. And the semester is ending is the biggest problem. So things are working this way. Now, if I pick up something and delete it, it will confirm. Do you want, oops, message is wrong. What happens in cancel? Nothing must happen. Yeah, right. It's okay. Nothing must happen in no. Perfect. And say yes. Invalid cast exception. Okay, so something is wrong. Unable to cast object of type string to oh, of course. If you do something wrong, you'll get something wrong. So I have done something wrong here. Okay, so what have we done? I mean, it has to be something. Okay, do you want to delete? So what am I doing? I'm picking up the item from the selected position. Oh, that selected position is not a string, right? But I've converted it into a product. No, it's not even a product. Oops. Okay. It's not a product. Yeah, it was this tab. What? It's just a display, right? If I say string from here, then I can't use P here, right? Then I can't use P here. It's just a string.
No, you can use it.
But it's not a product, so I can't cast it into a string. You know what I mean? If you cast it into a string here, how can you remove a string from the items? No, not here. Sorry, here. Here I can do it. There I can. Yeah, you're right. So what should I do now? You see what is happening? I have a cast exception error. Why? Think about it. The list display. The list display is simply a display, and for each display, it is just a string, right? So I said, okay, get me my position. I can cast it into a string and put it in P, and I'm okay. I can remove it from my display. It is okay. But how will I remove it from my list? How will I remove it from my list? I'll have to search it and remove it. It's more work. You know what?
You can sort them both and then.
Yeah, or sort them both. Yep. You can sort your list every time. Or the other option is, of course, you don't sort your display. That is a different one. Okay, so taking the easy way out. You see what the problem is? This is not a product. What's coming out of the selected position is just a string. So to get out the easy way, I'll go here. No. I'll go here. I'll change it from sorted to back to normal. I'll let it do this. If I let it do this, what do I do here? No, where was I? So it's not running. It's not complete, but that's okay. Okay, so it's not sorted now. If it is not sorted, what do I do? Okay, then there is nothing to do then. Guys, if it is not sorted, then there is nothing to do.
Are you able to put up onto
GitHub? Yeah, sure.
Solution with the sorted option?
Yes, I will. I'll definitely do that too. It's not a big deal. I'll do that too. Not necessarily today, but I will, right? Okay, so this one is simple. We can do this and we'll be done. Here, this should okay. I'm removing it at a position now. So it is unsorted. It will just remove it. Now this is the easy one way out. The other one, of course, will require a little more work, but that's okay. I'll stop here just because there's another class here, which is fine. But I'll double check that this works, and then I'll also put the solution with sorted. All you have to do is, it's just one of the good ideas that Amrit gave was sort the list also. That's the easiest way to do it, right? Sort both the list and the display, and then just again use the position, right? Again use the position. Okay. So I'll double check that this runs, and then I'll put it. Okay. Thank you, guys. I'll let you know in a couple of days. I'll put up a notice. Okay. It's just the Tuesday section, and most probably it is a no. Okay. Yeah, okay, it's working. Yeah, it will work. It is working now. Yeah, we'll just sort it. I think there is no other way. I mean, there could be, but sorting is the easiest way. Sort both lists and then still use the position, right? I mean, that's the easiest way of doing it. Otherwise, we'll have to extract it and look at it and then search it, and it's a lot of work. When sorting is available, why not do it? The only thing with sorting is the time that is involved. But yeah, but that would be the most easy one. Then you won't have to worry about what's coming out and how to cast it and what to use. Yeah, that's a good idea actually. Yeah. Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.